Unexpected reunion, Sophia Martinez adjusted her tablet and smoothed her navy blazer as she walked through the marble lobby of the Grandview estate. 5 years of building her reputation as the city's premier wedding planner had taught her that. First impressions with high-profile clients were everything. The morning sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, casting elegant shadows across the pristine space that would soon host another of her signature events. "Miss Martinez?" A familiar voice stopped her cold. She turned slowly, her professional smile freezing on her lips. Standing in the doorway of the estate's main reception hall was Gabriel Ashworth, older, more refined, but unmistakably the man who had once promised her forever before disappearing from her life without explanation. Gabriel. His name escaped, as barely a whisper. He looked as stunned as she felt, his usually composed demeanor cracking for just a moment. The Gabriel she remembered had been ambitious but struggling, working 18-hour days to build his first startup from their cramped apartment. This man wore confidence like an expensive suit, his dark hair perfectly styled, his presence commanding the room. "I had no idea you were the planner," he said, stepping closer. "When my assistant mentioned Martinez events, I never imagined—" Sophia forced herself to breathe, to remember why she was here. "Congratulations on your engagement," she managed, her voice steadier than she felt. "I understand you're looking for something spectacular." Gabriel's eyes, still the same deep brown that had once made her lose her train of thought, searched her face. "Sophia, I think we should talk—" "About the wedding, of course." She opened her tablet with practiced efficiency, grateful for the familiar ritual of work. "I've reviewed your initial requirements. July 15th, 300 guests, budget, flexible. The bride has requested a garden ceremony with a reception in the grand ballroom." The mention of his bride seemed to ground them both in reality. Gabriel nodded, slipping back into professional mode, though Sophia caught him stealing glances at her as she outlined her vision for the event. "The Grandview estate offers unparalleled elegance," she continued, leading him through the venue. "We can create a ceremony space in the rose garden with white silk draping and crystal chandeliers suspended from the oak trees. The reception hall can accommodate your guest list with room for a full orchestra and dancing." As they walked through the gardens, Sophia found herself remembering lazy Sunday mornings when Gabriel would bring her coffee in bed and they'd plan their own future wedding. She'd wanted something simple then, a small ceremony with close friends and family. Now she was planning his elaborate celebration with someone else. "You've done well for yourself," Gabriel said quietly as they paused beside the fountain. "I've seen your work featured in magazines. I'm proud of you." The sincerity in his voice almost undid her careful composure. "Thank you. You've obviously succeeded beyond your wildest dreams, too." She gestured toward his expensive watch, the way staff members seemed to hover attentively nearby. "Tech Billionaire suits you." A shadow crossed his features. Success isn't always what it appears to be. Before Sophia could respond, her phone buzzed with a text from her assistant. The bride wanted to schedule a tasting for next week, but only if Gabriel couldn't attend. "It seems Miss Sterling prefers to handle the details without you," Sophia observed, trying to keep her tone neutral. Gabriel's jaw tightened. "Victoria is very independent. She has strong opinions about wedding planning." Something in his voice made Sophia look at him more carefully. There was a tension there, a weariness that seemed at odds with a man planning to marry the love of his life. "Well," Sophia said, closing her tablet, "I'll coordinate with her directly then. I'll send you both a proposal by Friday." As she turned to leave, Gabriel caught her arm gently. "Sophia, what happened between us was 5 years ago," she finished firmly. "I'm here to plan your wedding, Gabriel. Nothing more." But as she walked away, Sophia couldn't shake the feeling that this wedding was going to challenge everything she'd worked to build, both professionally and personally, professional boundaries. The following Tuesday, Sophia stood in the private dining room of Le Bernardin, watching Victoria Sterling pick at her salmon with the disinterest of someone attending a business meeting rather than planning her dream wedding. The bride-to-be was stunning. Platinum blonde hair pulled into a severe chignon, designer clothes that probably cost more than most people's cars, and an air of cool detachment that made Sophia's job infinitely more challenging. "The flowers are fine. Whatever you think is best," Victoria said, barely glancing at the elaborate arrangements Sophia had carefully selected. "I trust your professional judgment." James, Sophia's assistant, raised an eyebrow from his seat beside her. In 3 years of working together, he'd never encountered a bride so indifferent to her own wedding details. He leaned forward, his warm smile attempting to draw Victoria into the conversation. "Miss Sterling, these are really important decisions. The floral arrangements will set the entire tone for your day. Don't you want something that reflects your personality as a couple?" Victoria's laugh was sharp. "Gabriel and I are both practical people. We don't need romantic flourishes." She checked her phone for the 3rd time in 10 minutes. "I'm sorry, I have a conference call with Tokyo in 20 minutes. Can we wrap this up?" Sophia felt her professional pride bristle. She'd planned weddings for celebrities, politicians, and royalty. But she'd never had a bride treat her wedding like an inconvenient business transaction. "Of course," Sophia replied smoothly, "but I do need some input on the menu. The chef has prepared 3 options. Gabriel handles all the food decisions. He's quite particular about dining." Victoria was already standing, gathering her Hermes bag. "Just email me whatever you decide. I'm sure it will be lovely." As Victoria's heels clicked across the marble floor toward the exit, James shook his head in disbelief. "In all my years in this business, I've never seen a bride care less about her own wedding." Sophia stared after Victoria, unease settling in her stomach. It's almost like she doesn't want to be getting married at all. That evening, Sophia found herself working late in her office, surrounded by wedding magazines and fabric samples. She'd always prided herself on creating weddings that reflected the couple's love story, but how could she craft something meaningful when the bride seemed determined to remain uninvolved? Her phone rang, Gabriel's name appearing on the screen. She hesitated before answering. "Sophia, I hope I'm not calling too late. I wanted to apologize for Victoria today. James mentioned the meeting didn't go as planned. She's unique," Sophia said diplomatically. "Most brides have strong opinions about their wedding day." Gabriel was quiet for a moment. "Victoria isn't most brides. She's incredibly focused on her career. This wedding is more of a merger for her." The word merger hit Sophia like a physical blow. "A merger? Her family's investment firm and my tech company have been discussing partnerships. Victoria believes our marriage will solidify those business relationships." Gabriel's voice carried a weariness that made Sophia's chest tighten. "It makes sense financially." "Gabriel," Sophia said softly, "marriage should be about more than financial sense. Should it?" His question hung in the air. 5 years ago, I thought love was enough. I learned that sometimes practical considerations matter more." Sophia closed her eyes, remembering the night he'd disappeared from her life. She'd found his engagement ring on the kitchen counter and a note saying he couldn't give her the life she deserved. She'd never understood what he meant until now. "I should let you go," Gabriel said. "I just wanted to make sure you're comfortable, continuing with the planning. I know this situation is complicated. I'm a professional, Gabriel. I'll give you and Victoria the wedding you want. What if what we want and what we need are different things?" Before Sophia could respond, Gabriel had hung up, leaving her staring at her phone in the dim light of her office. She looked around at the photos covering her walls, dozens of happy couples on their wedding days, faces glowing with joy and love. She'd built her career on believing in happily ever after. So why did planning Gabriel's wedding feel like orchestrating? The biggest mistake of his life. James poked his head through her office door. Still here? You know the wedding isn't tomorrow, right? Sophia managed a smile. Just trying to understand our clients better. Well, from what I saw today, the groom is still in love with someone else, and the bride is treating her wedding like a board meeting. James settled into the chair across from her desk. Want to talk about it? Sophia looked at her assistant. Young, intuitive, and remarkably perceptive about matters of the heart. What would you do if you had to plan a wedding you knew was a mistake? I'd remember that it's not my job to save people from themselves, James said gently. But it is my job to make sure my boss doesn't get her heart broken twice by the same man. As Sophia drove home through the city streets, James's words echoed in her mind. She'd rebuilt her life after Gabriel left, creating something beautiful from the ashes of their relationship. Now she had to decide if she was strong enough to plan his wedding without losing herself in the process. Her name is Camille, and she's a marine biologist working in Costa Rica. We've been writing to each other for 2 years, ever since I attended that environmental conference in San Jose. I've been hiding behind this engagement because it was easier than disappointing my father or admitting that I'm not the daughter he wants me to be. The silence that followed was deafening. Richard Sterling looked like he'd been struck by lightning, while Gabriel seemed caught between relief and bewilderment. Helena leaned close to Sophia's ear. Should I start telling the guests? But before Sophia could answer, Victoria was already walking toward the garden where 300 guests sat waiting. She moved with the confidence of someone who had finally found her courage, leaving the adults to deal with the aftermath of her decision. Ladies and gentlemen, Victoria's voice carried across the garden as she took the microphone from the officiant. I want to thank you all for being here today to witness what should have been my wedding to Gabriel Ashworth. A murmur rippled through the crowd as Gabriel moved to stand beside her, his face a mask of composure. However, Victoria continued, I've realized that marriage should be based on love, not convenience. Gabriel is a wonderful man who deserves someone who can give him her whole heart. I am not that person, and I won't pretend to be for the sake of appearances or business arrangements. Richard Sterling stormed toward the makeshift altar, but Victoria held up her hand. This is my decision, Dad. For once in my life, I'm choosing authenticity over expectations. She turned to Gabriel, removing her engagement ring. I'm sorry for putting us both through this charade. You deserve real love, not a business partnership disguised as marriage. As Victoria walked away from the altar, leaving Gabriel standing alone before hundreds of stunned guests, Sophia felt her heart breaking for everyone involved. But beneath the chaos and embarrassment, she recognized something else, the sound of truth finally being spoken, no matter how painful it might be. Gabriel looked out at the sea of shocked faces, then found Sophia's eyes across the garden. In that moment, with his carefully constructed life falling apart around him, he looked more like the man she'd fallen in love with than he had in years. The question now was what they would all do with this unexpected freedom. New beginnings. The aftermath of Victoria's announcement had been a masterclass in damage control. While Helena managed the logistics of dismissing 300 guests and coordinating with vendors, Sophia found herself in the unexpected position of counseling the almost groom through the most public rejection of his life. Gabriel had retreated to the estate's library, loosening his bow tie and staring out at the garden where his wedding was supposed to have taken place. Sophia knocked softly before entering, carrying 2 glasses of the champagne that would have been used for toasts. I thought you might need this, she said, offering him a glass. Gabriel accepted it with a rueful smile. To the most expensive non-wedding in history? To honesty? Sophia countered, raising her glass. Victoria did the right thing. They drank in comfortable silence, the weight of unspoken words filling the space between them. Finally, Gabriel set down his glass and turned to face her fully. Marcus told me he talked to you. About my father. About why I left. Sophia nodded, her throat tight. You should have told me yourself. I was 26 and terrified, Gabriel said simply. I thought I was protecting you from a future that might include medical bills, grief, uncertainty. I thought love meant shielding you from potential pain. Love means trusting someone enough to let them choose, Sophia replied. You took that choice away from me. Gabriel's face crumpled slightly. I know, and I've regretted it every day since. When I saw you again 3 weeks ago, I realized that no amount of success or security could fill the hole I created when I walked away from us. So why were you going through with this wedding? Gabriel ran his hands through his hair, messing up the perfect styling. Because I convinced myself I didn't deserve a second chance. Richard Sterling offered me a partnership when my company was failing, and when he suggested the marriage arrangement, it felt like penance, a practical solution that wouldn't require me to risk my heart again. Sophia moved closer, her professional reserve finally cracking. Gabriel, your father lived 2 more years because you sacrificed everything for him. You've built a company that employs hundreds of people. You've earned forgiveness, especially from yourself. Have I earned yours? The question hung between them like a bridge Sophia could choose to cross or burn. She thought about the last 5 years, the late nights building her business, the relationships she'd sabotaged because no one measured up to her memory of Gabriel, the careful walls she'd built around her heart. Ask me again in 6 months, she said finally. Gabriel's face fell slightly, but Sophia wasn't finished. Because if we do this, if we try again, I need to know you won't run when things get difficult. I need to know you'll trust me enough to face whatever comes together. Gabriel stepped closer, his eyes searching hers. And what do you need to know about yourself? Sophia considered this. I need to know I'm choosing you for the right reasons, not because of our history, or because I never got over you, but because of who we are now and who we could become together. 6 months, Gabriel repeated thoughtfully. What happens in the meantime? We date properly this time. No moving in together after 3 weeks. No getting engaged after 6 months. We take time to really know each other as the people we've become. Gabriel's smile was the first genuine one she'd seen from him all day. I'd like that very much. 6 months later, Sophia stood in the same rose garden where Gabriel's non-wedding had taken place. But this time she was there for a much smaller, more intimate ceremony. Victoria Sterling was marrying Camille Rodriguez in a simple sunset celebration, with 30 guests, including Gabriel and Sophia, who had become unlikely friends with the couple. I never thanked you properly, Victoria said, as Sophia made final adjustments to her simple silk dress. For not judging me, for helping plan this celebration, instead of just walking away after the disaster I caused. You gave yourself and Gabriel the greatest gift possible, Sophia replied, the chance to find real happiness. Victoria glanced toward where Gabriel stood talking with Camille about marine conservation efforts. Are you happy, Sophia? Really? Sophia followed her gaze to Gabriel, who caught her eye and winked. They'd taken things slowly. Dinner dates, long walks, gradual introductions to their separate friend groups. They'd talked about their fears, their dreams, their non-negotiable values. Gabriel had attended therapy to work through his tendency to make unilateral decisions, while Sophia had learned to voice her needs instead of assuming her partner should intuitively know them. We're getting there, Sophia said honestly. Some things are worth rebuilding from the ground up. After the ceremony, as Victoria and Camille danced under string lights in the garden, Gabriel found Sophia by the fountain where they'd stood 6 months earlier. Penny for your thoughts. Sophia leaned against his shoulder, marveling at how natural it felt. I was thinking about second chances, how rare they are and how easily they can be wasted. Gabriel's arm tightened around her. Are We wasting ours? Sophia looked up at him. This man she'd loved, lost, and was slowly learning to love again in a deeper, more mature way. Ask me again in another 6 months. Gabriel laughed, the sound rich and full of promise. I'll keep asking until you're ready to say yes. To what question exactly? Sophia asked, though her heart already knew the answer. Gabriel's smile was tender as he brushed a strand of hair from her face. To forever. But this time, we'll build it together, one day at a time. As they walked hand in hand through the garden, where their story had once ended and then began again, Sophia realized that sometimes the most beautiful love stories weren't about perfect timing or fairy tale moments. They were about finding someone worth fighting for, worth waiting for, and worth rebuilding with when life knocked you down. The wedding planner in her appreciated the symmetry, but the woman in love simply appreciated the man beside her and the future they were carefully, deliberately creating together.